Amy Goodman of Democracy Now! Has had an arrest warrant issued for her because of her coverage, in the North Dakota pipeline. The protest is going on right now, still going on in North Dakota. The only media outlet that showed up on the scene was Democracy Now! Democracy Now! Has essentially propelled this story into the national light, brought it to the national attention. And because of Democracy Now!'s coverage, CNN, MSNBC, all these other outlets picked it up and started covering it. And as a result, there has been an arrest warrant issued by North Dakota, for Amy Goodman. She has been charged with criminal trespassing, which is a misdemeanor offense. And this is, again, a result of her team being in North Dakota last week, covering the protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And this is a quote from Democracy Now! This is actually a quote from Amy Goodman. She said, "This is an unacceptable violation of freedom of the press. I was doing my job by covering pipeline guards unleashing dogs and pepper spray on Native American protesters." This is it's interesting, troubling, disturbing, but an interesting shift in the suppression of media. And not this political suppression that we see where people will suppress some conservative, Facebook got caught suppressing some conservative media outlets, which is bad, right? That's bad, right? And not just covering, you have conservative outlets that do their best to suppress. I'm not talking about the partisan suppression that people do and try every day. I'm talking about corporations, private contractors in partnership with the state, essentially going after the media because of what the media exposed. This is next level, in my opinion, right? This case that not a lot of people are talking about. So far, I've seen minimum coverage of the charges being pressed or the warrant that has been issued against Amy Goodman. But this is the next level suppression. This is the partnership between state, local authorities, and private corporations working together to suppress the media. In other words, this is punitive to say because this organization, Democracy Now!, came and report. I mean, at what point does, and they're charging her with trespassing and coming on private property, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is something that there are, I believe, almost 4,000 people out there right now. There have been attack dogs that have been unleashed on protesters, tear gas thrown on protesters. This is something that has made its way all the way to the White House. And they have been able to keep this basically suppressed because there has been no media coverage in any significant fashion. I believe the Young Turks, they sent a reporting team out there, and then Democracy Now! And perhaps some local newspapers. But in terms of national coverage, there was none. And once Democracy Now! Got there, that exposed it on another level that it had not gotten. And now they're going to press charges. Part of me is still naive enough to believe that these charges won't go anywhere, because it's a clearly an affront to the freedom of the press. Clearly, there's no question, right? At some point, if there's breaking news, the media has the right to go and expose that news to the rest of America, right? If this warrant, if she's arrested and charged with trespassing and found guilty of trespassing, then this sets a precedent that will have ramifications for, I mean, just unbelievably far-reaching ramifications. I mean, think about it. If the media has to get permission to go on every piece of private property, then that limits the media to covering the news from just where the public square is, the sidewalks, you know, the street, the middle of the street. So part of me, you know, and you know, maybe I didn't do the research to see if there's ever been a case. I guess I could look up a case now, right? Of media being charged with trespassing. Like, I don't know if there's any precedent before this. Well, 2015, there's a Washington Post reporter charged with trespassing and interfering with the police officer. Let me see. Is that in Ferguson? Yep, Ferguson, Missouri. Imagine that. I just took a while. Something said 2015. Somebody, Ferguson. And I wonder if there's a correlation between the coverage that is pushing back against the state and their decision to charge them with trespassing. So far, I'm 2 for 2, but of course that sample size is entirely too small to make that conclusion. But nevertheless, part of me is naive enough to believe that these charges will not go anywhere. But I think we should all follow this step by step to see if it goes anywhere, because it will set a precedent that would have far-reaching ramifications if the state is able to charge someone with trespassing, a media outlet with trespassing for covering the news, when covering the news requires them to go onto private property, especially in the case of large-scale protests where there's about 4,000 people who are trespassing in protests.